Mom lifted her glass at my sister's 300-guest wedding, then turned and asked me, "When's your turn?" I replied, 8 months ago. You were invited. Your favorite daughter tossed it straight into the trash. Can you imagine receiving a gift so utterly designed to wound you? A present that makes your blood run cold and shatters every last piece of hope you had for your own family? That's exactly what happened to me this Christmas Eve, and let me tell you, it was far from a silent night. The Montgomery estate, my childhood home, always smells of pine and cinnamon during the holidays, but that night, it reeked of formaldehyde. I stood in the middle of the living room, my fingers numbly gripping a cream-colored gift box, silk ribbons still tied around it. Inside, nestled on a bed of tissue paper, was a lifetime VIP membership to Last Chance Love, an app explicitly marketed to desperate singles over 30. And underneath it? A hardcover book, raised gold lettering glinting in the firelight. How to Find Happiness When You Die Alone. The fire roared behind me in the marble fireplace, and outside, fat, silent flakes of snow blanketed the manicured grounds. But the cold filling that room had nothing to do with December. My sister, Bella, giggled. You know that sound? The one that's supposed to be sweet, but it just slices right through you? It bounced off those vaulted ceilings like breaking glass. I saw it on TikTok, she chirped, her voice dripping with sickly sweet poison. The reviews were amazing. 5 stars for women who've given up on traditional dating. I couldn't even look up. My eyes were glued to that horrific pink app card, to the cartoon of a wilting flower. A wilting flower, you guys. That's what they think I am. Expired. Take it, dear. My mother, Trinity Montgomery, chimed in, perched on the ivory satin sofa. Her posture was so rigid she could have been carved from the same marble as the fireplace. Bella's just worried about your future. Don't let your ego turn you into a spinster forever. My father, Richard Montgomery, said nothing. He just stood by the bar cart, swirling bourbon in a crystal tumbler, studying the amber liquid like it held answers he wasn't interested in sharing with me. His business partner, Harrison Sterling, shifted uncomfortably in a leather armchair nearby. And Preston Sterling, Bella's fiancé? He was suddenly engrossed in his phone. I closed the box. Slowly. My hands didn't shake, but something inside my chest felt like it was cracking. It had been 8 months. 8 months since I'd sent those invitations. 8 months since I'd spent 3 evenings at my dining table in Austin, carefully selecting the perfect cardstock, tying velvet ribbons by hand. Nate had watched me from the doorway, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Are you sure you don't need to call them? He'd asked. I just smoothed another ribbon, my fingers working the silk into a perfect bow. They're my parents. They wouldn't miss this. That memory sat in my throat like a stone. I delayed the ceremony for 30 minutes, staring at those 2 empty chairs in the front row. Reserved for Dad. Reserved for Mom. The signs I'd painted myself on small wooden plaques, decorated with wildflowers because my mother had once mentioned she liked daisies. That was 7 years ago, but I remembered. I remembered everything they had forgotten. Well? Bella leaned forward on the sofa, her blonde hair cascading over one shoulder in a calculated tumble. Her engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond that cost more than my entire wedding, caught the firelight. Aren't you going to say thank you? The words stuck in my throat. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to run out those massive oak doors, like I'd done so many times before. Drive back to the airport, fly home to Austin, where Nate was probably heating up leftover Thai food and wondering if I was okay. But I was so tired of running. Harrison Sterling cleared his throat. Perhaps we should move on to dinner, he suggested, his voice carefully neutral. I believe the caterers have everything ready in the dining room. Bella's smirk widened. She knew she'd won this round. She always did. Except this time, something inside me didn't break. It snapped. Not my heart, which had been breaking in that house since I was old enough to understand that some children are treasured, and others are merely tolerated. No, what snapped was something harder. The chains I'd been dragging around for 29 years. The ones labeled good daughter and second best. The ones whispering, maybe if you try harder. I looked up. My eyes met Bella's, and I watched her triumphant expression falter, just slightly. There was something in my face she didn't recognize. Something cold. And clean. And final. Thank you, Bella, I said. My voice came out smooth, almost pleasant. I'll keep this very carefully. I tucked the box under my arm, holding it against my ribs like evidence, because that's exactly what it was. Trinity frowned. Caroline, don't be dramatic. It's just a thoughtful gift. Oh, I know. I smiled. The expression felt strange on my face, like I was wearing someone else's mouth. It's very thoughtful. Very valuable. Richard finally looked at me, his gray eyebrows drawing together. Caroline, he said, that familiar warning in his tone. The same tone he used when I was 16 and suggested that maybe, just maybe, Bella shouldn't get a BMW for her first car when I'd received a 10-year-old Honda. The tone that meant, don't make a scene, don't embarrass us, don't exist too loudly. This space is meant for your sister to shine. I held his gaze. Yes, Dad. He opened his mouth, closed it, and turned back to his bourbon. Preston Sterling stood abruptly, shoving his phone into his jacket pocket. I need some air, he muttered, walking toward the French doors leading to the terrace. Bella's smile finally cracked. Preston, it's freezing out there. Preston hesitated at the terrace doors, the cold air blowing in, before turning back with a resigned sigh to join the procession to the dining room. But he was already gone. And I understood something in that moment. He was uncomfortable. He should be. Any decent person would be. Shall we? Harrison gestured toward the dining room, his discomfort palpable in the tight set of his shoulders. The dining room chandelier threw diamond patterns across the white linen tablecloth. Trinity tapped her spoon against her crystal water glass, the sound cutting through the murmur of polite conversation like a blade. Before we begin, my mother announced, her voice pitched for an audience, I want to toast this very special season, the year of the bride. I watched Bella straighten in her chair, her practiced smile blooming across her face like she'd been waiting for this cue her entire life. My youngest daughter, Trinity continued, gesturing toward Bella with her wine glass, will be married this February in what I can only describe as a modern royal event. 300 guests, the ballroom at the Four Seasons, a dress that took 6 months to design. Preston shifted beside Bella, his jaw tight. Harrison Sterling studied his salad fork with the intensity of an archaeologist examining an artifact. Bella has always known how to do things properly, Trinity said. And the word properly landed on my skin like a slap. With grace, with consideration for family. My father lifted his bourbon in agreement. He hadn't looked at me since we sat down. I cut into my filet mignon. The knife slid through the meat with barely any resistance, but my hand felt welded to the handle. Trinity set down her glass with a delicate click. Her gaze swung toward me, and I recognized the glint in her eyes. She was about to perform. Bella is settled, she said, her tone dripping with manufactured concern. But what about you, Caroline? You're approaching 30. You can't plan to live with plants forever, can you? The table went quiet. Even the catering staff refilling water glasses near the sideboard seemed to freeze mid-pour. When is it your turn? Trinity asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. I felt Preston's eyes flick toward me, then away. Harrison cleared his throat but said nothing. Bella leaned forward slightly, her expression arranged into something that might pass for sisterly interest if you didn't know her. But I did know her. I saw the anticipation in the way her fingers curled around her wine stem. She was waiting for me to crumble. To stammer. To make some excuse about focusing on my career or not having met the right person yet. I set down my silverware. The clink of metal on porcelain sounded louder than it should. I'm not single, Mother. The words came out calm, steady, like I was commenting on the weather. Trinity blinked. Excuse me? I've been married for 8 months. My mother's face went through 3 distinct expressions in the span of 2 seconds: confusion, disbelief, rage. Liar! The word exploded out of her mouth before she could stop it. Her hand slammed down on the table, rattling the silverware. Why would no one know about this? You secretly eloped in Vegas, didn't you? Is that why you've been so distant? I didn't elope in Vegas. Bella's face had gone pale, but she recovered fast. She always does. Are you making up stories to ruin my engagement party? Her voice cracked perfectly, hitting that sweet spot between wounded and incredulous. You've always been jealous of me, Caroline, but this is pathetic even for you. She turned to Preston, her hand finding his arm. Can you believe this? But Preston was looking at me, his attorney's brain clearly running calculations I couldn't quite read. I sent invitations, I said. My voice hadn't changed pitch. I sounded almost bored, which was strange because my heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Via FedEx overnight. In February. My father's glass hit the table hard enough that bourbon sloshed over the rim. If you sent invitations and didn't get a reply, why didn't you call? His face was flushed, the vein in his temple pulsing. You did this on purpose, didn't you? To embarrass this family in front of the Sterlings. And there it was. The truth I'd been circling around for 8 months. The answer I didn't want to see. Even as the evidence piled up around me like snow against a door, they didn't forget. They were gaslighting me right now, in front of witnesses, rewriting history while I sat here holding the receipts they didn't know existed yet. The last thread of hope I'd been clutching, the one I didn't even know I was still holding, dissolved. Something shifted inside my chest. The architect in me took over. The part that knows how to read blueprints and calculate load-bearing walls and understand exactly where pressure needs to be applied for a structure to fail. I stopped trying to defend myself with emotions. They don't care about my feelings. They never have. Under the table, hidden by the white linen, I slid my phone from my clutch. My thumb found the message thread with Nate. I typed one word. Now. The message showed as delivered, then read. I put the phone away and picked up my fork again, spearing a piece of asparagus like nothing happened. Caroline. My mother's voice had that dangerous quality to it now. The one that used to send me running to my childhood bedroom, desperate to be smaller, quieter, less troublesome. Stop this nonsense and apologize to your sister. For what? I took a bite of asparagus. It tasted like absolutely nothing. For getting married? For inviting my family to my wedding? Which part needs an apology? Bella's eyes were bright with tears that hadn't fallen yet. She's good at this, holding them right on the edge where they catch the light. I can't believe you'd lie about something like this. On Christmas Eve. I'm not lying. Then prove it, my father snapped. I met his eyes across the table. Okay. Harrison Sterling shifted in his seat, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Preston had gone very still beside Bella, his lawyer instincts finally catching up to whatever his gut had been telling him. The chandelier above us caught on my wedding band. I'd been wearing it this whole time. They never even noticed. Dessert will be ready in 15 minutes, one of the catering staff announced from the doorway, oblivious to the tension crackling through the room like static electricity. My phone buzzed once against my thigh. A text from Nate. System accessed? Ready when you are. Nighty-night. I looked up at the 85-inch smart TV mounted above the fireplace in the adjoining sitting area, currently displaying a digital fire log that mirrored the real fire burning below it. Actually, I said, standing up from the table, I think we should skip dessert tonight. I walked toward the TV, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. There's something everyone needs to see. Caroline, sit down. My mother's voice had taken on that edge. The one that used to make me shrink into myself. Not tonight. I stopped in front of the TV, my back to the room. You always believe Bella unconditionally. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm, almost conversational. But have you forgotten what my husband does for a living? Silence. I turned to face them. Nathaniel Vance. Senior Cybersecurity Analyst. He works for a firm that protects Fortune 500 companies from data breaches. Trinity's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't see what that has to do with anything. Don't you? I pulled my phone from my clutch, holding it up so they could see the screen. 3 letters glowed there. Now. Sent 18 minutes ago. Delivered. The TV screen behind me flickered. Bella's head snapped up, her tears forgotten. What are you doing? The virtual fire log cut out. The screen went black for exactly 2 seconds. Then it lit up again, displaying something entirely different. A computer desktop. Blue background. Neat rows of folders. Remote access activated. Appeared in the corner in small white text. What is this? Richard's voice had gone hard. Turn that off. I designed the electrical system for this house. I kept my tone pleasant, almost chatty, like I was discussing the weather. Did you know that? You hired me fresh out of grad school. Paid me an exposure and family discount rates. I installed every smart system, every camera, every sensor. I turned back to the screen, watching as the cursor moved without anyone touching it. Nate. Working from our home office in Austin, his fingers flying across keys 2,000 miles away. The admin password was never changed. I continued. I recommended you change it. Remember? I sent that email twice. Harrison Sterling leaned forward, his expression caught between fascination and horror. Preston had gone very still beside Bella, his lawyer brain clearly working through implications. This is illegal. Bella's voice cracked. Not with tears this time, with panic. Actually, it's not. I didn't look at her. I'm the system administrator on record. I have full legal access. Nate is simply helping me retrieve my own files. Trinity stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood. Files? What files? The cursor on the screen moved to a folder. The label made Bella gasp. Project Truth. When you dismissed my career as playing with plants, I said quietly. You forgot I'm an architect. Architects plan. We think 3 steps ahead. We build systems designed to last. My father's face had gone red. You had no right to put cameras in our home without telling us. I told you. My voice stayed level. I gave you a 40-page manual. You signed off on everything. There's a camera at the front door, one at the side entrance, one covering the driveway. All disclosed, all legal, all recording to a professional NVR system in your wine cellar. What's an NVR system? Trinity's voice sounded smaller now. Network video recorder. I finally turned to look at her. It's not cloud storage that deletes after 6 months. It's physical hard drives. Professional-grade data retention for 2 years. I watched the color drain from Bella's face. She understood. She was already doing the math, counting backward through months. You're bluffing, she whispered. I turned back to the screen. The cursor hovered over the folder. Do you remember February 12th, Bella? I asked. My voice sounded almost gentle. It was a Tuesday. Cold. You were wearing your cream cashmere coat. The FedEx driver arrived at 10:15 a.m. Stop it! Bella's voice rose. Mom, make her stop! The package was blue. I continued. Express overnight. 4 velvet boxes inside, wrapped in ivory ribbon. My wedding invitations. Preston's head turned toward Bella slowly, like he was seeing her for the first time. Turn it off! Bella screamed. Mom, make her turn it off! But Trinity was frozen, her hands still pressed to her throat, her eyes locked on the screen. It was too late anyway. I hit enter on my phone. Nate, receiving the signal, opened the folder. The first image filled the screen in perfect high definition. A FedEx receipt. Signature line clearly visible. Isabella Montgomery signed in her distinctive looping handwriting. Date, February 12th. Time, 10:15 a.m. The dining room exploded into chaos. But I just stood there, my phone in my hand, watching my sister's carefully constructed world begin to crack, and I felt nothing but cold, clean satisfaction. "That's my signature," Bella said immediately. Her voice had lost its hysterical edge, replaced by something flatter, more dangerous. "So what? I signed for a package. That doesn't prove anything except that I was home that day." She was recovering faster than I expected. "Evidence 1," I said, keeping my voice level, clinical, like I was presenting designs to a difficult client. "You signed for a package from Caroline and Nate Vance on February 12th, 3 weeks after our wedding invitations were mailed via FedEx overnight." "I don't remember every package I signed for." Bella crossed her arms. "We get deliveries constantly. My brand partnerships alone generate dozens of shipments per week." But Trinity sat up straighter. I could see her grasping at this explanation, wrapping her hands around it like a lifeline. "That's true. Bella's business requires constant inventory management. She can't be expected to remember one random delivery from 8 months ago." Nate's cursor moved on the screen. The receipt disappeared, replaced by a screenshot of an email inbox. My mother's email inbox. "Evidence 2," I said. The screen showed Trinity's Gmail account settings. Filters. There was a long list of them, sorting newsletters and promotional emails into various folders. But one filter sat at the top of the list, marked with a red flag icon. "Rule name, wedding block," I read aloud. "If subject contains wedding and Caroline, then delete permanently. Skip inbox. Do not archive." The creation date sits right there in gray text, February 14th. 2 days after the invitations were delivered. This filter was installed from an IP address that traces back to Bella's device. I continued. Her iPhone specifically. The same device she uses to manage her Instagram account. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of a trap snapping shut. Trinity's face had gone pale. "That's not possible. I never authorized anything like that." "Of course you didn't." I met my mother's eyes. "Bella has your password. She's had it for years. Remember when she set up your 2-factor authentication last Christmas? She told you it was for security." Preston stood up slowly from his chair. He was staring at Bella like he was seeing her for the first time. "You hacked into your mother's email?" "I didn't hack anything." Bella's voice pitched higher. "I have access because Mom asked me to help manage her correspondence. She gets overwhelmed by all the emails. I manage philanthropic contacts," Trinity said weakly. "Weekly charity board communications. Bella helps me organize them." Harrison Sterling's voice cut through the room. He was still sitting in his chair, but his posture had changed. He was no longer the uncomfortable observer. He was engaged now, focused. "By deleting emails about your daughter's wedding." Bella stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Fine. Yes, I hid the invitations, but I did it to protect Mom and Dad." The room froze. She was pivoting. I watched it happen in real time. The way her expression shifted from defensive to aggrieved. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice shook, but not with fear. With righteous indignation. "You sent those invitations last minute," she continued, voice trembling. "For some shabby vineyard in Texas. Dad has high blood pressure. Mom worries constantly about image, about what people think. I saw that location you chose, Caroline. That rustic barn aesthetic. And I was afraid. Afraid they'd be humiliated. Afraid they'd spend the whole trip stressing about appearances." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So yes, I hid them. I threw them away. I did it out of love. I was trying to protect our parents from embarrassment." Trinity inhaled sharply. I watched her expression shift. Saw her reaching for this new narrative like a drowning person grabbing driftwood. "You were protecting us?" "Of course I was." Bella's voice cracked. "Caroline always does things her own way, never considering how it reflects on the family. I couldn't let you suffer through some subpar wedding just because she refuses to maintain our standards. It was brilliant, in a horrible way. She'd reframed herself from villain to hero in 30 seconds flat. The malicious act became protective sacrifice. The lie became love. Preston's frown deepened. He wasn't buying it. I could see the doubt written across his face. The way his jaw tightened. But my parents were already softening. Already finding the explanation they wanted to believe. I didn't panic. I didn't rage. I didn't give Bella the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Instead, I smiled. It was a smile full of pity. The kind you give a child who's trying to convince you the dog ate their homework when you can see the torn pages in the trash. Protecting them, I repeated softly. That's your story? It's the truth. Bella lifted her chin. Then why? I said, each word deliberate. Did you throw the invitations in the recycling bin instead of hiding them in a drawer? Bella blinked. What? If you were protecting Mom and Dad, if you were worried about their feelings, you would have hidden the invitations somewhere safe. Somewhere you could retrieve them later if needed. You would have preserved them carefully, just in case your plan went wrong. I gestured to the screen, where Nate had already queued the next file. But you didn't do that, did you? Preston turned to look at Bella. Really look at her. Did you? I was upset, Bella said quickly. I wasn't thinking clearly. That's interesting, I said. Because the video footage suggests you were thinking very clearly. I nodded to the screen. Nate clicked play. The video quality was stunning. Crystal clear footage from the front door camera, the one mounted above the entrance with a perfect view of the porch and driveway. The timestamp read, February 12, 10:14 a.m. The FedEx truck pulled into frame. The driver climbed out, carrying a blue package. He rang the doorbell. Bella appeared 30 seconds later. She was wearing yoga pants and a cropped hoodie, her hair in a high ponytail. She smiled at the driver, signed the tablet, accepted the package. The driver left. Bella looked down at the package. I watched her read the return address label, Caroline and Nate Vance. Her expression changed. The smile vanished. Something cold and sharp took its place. She didn't look worried. She didn't look protective. She looked furious. Bella glanced around, checking if anyone's watching. Then she walked to the side of the house where the recycling bins sat behind a decorative lattice screen. She didn't hesitate. Didn't pause. Didn't open the package to check the contents. She just hurled it into the bin like she was throwing out garbage. The 4 velvet boxes I'd wrapped so carefully, probably crushed on impact. The invitations I'd lettered by hand, likely bent and creased. She didn't look back. Just wiped her hands on her pants and walked inside. The video ended. The dining room stayed silent. Even the fire in the hearth seemed to hold its breath. Preston's face had gone blank. Carefully, deliberately blank. The expression of someone watching their entire future collapse. There's your protection, I said quietly. There's your love. The dining room held its breath. I watched Preston's face cycle through expressions too fast to name. Confusion. Realization. Disgust. He stood so abruptly, his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. The sound sharp enough to make my mother flinch. You threw your sister's wedding invitations in the trash. His voice was quiet, which somehow made it worse. Because you were afraid of sharing the spotlight? Bella reached for his arm. Preston, I can explain. He jerked away from her touch. You gave her a book about dying alone when you knew she was married? He was staring at Bella like he was seeing her for the first time. Maybe he was. I cannot marry a monster. The word hung in the air. Monster. Bella's face crumpled. You don't understand. She's always. But Preston was already moving. He pulled the engagement ring off her finger with such force, I'm surprised the band didn't bend. The 3-carat diamond caught the chandelier light one last time before he placed it on the table with a deliberate click that echoed like a gunshot. We're done, he said. My mother surged to her feet. Preston, don't be hasty. Bella made a mistake. But surely a mistake. Preston's laugh was harsh. Mrs. Montgomery. Your daughter committed mail tampering. She sabotaged her own sister's wedding. She lied to my face for 8 months. He shook his head. I wanted to marry into a family with integrity. Clearly, I was mistaken about what I'd find here. Harrison Sterling rose beside his son, his expression carved from granite. He turned to my father, who hadn't moved from his seat, whose face had gone the color of old newspaper. Richard. Harrison's voice carried the weight of 40 years in business. I've always believed that a man who cannot manage his household cannot manage a business. My father's bourbon glass paused halfway to his mouth. Your daughter is deceitful. Harrison gestured toward Bella. Your wife enables her. He looked at my mother, whose mouth opened and closed soundlessly. And you are irresponsible. His gaze settled back on my father. The merger project next month. Consider it cancelled. Sterling Group will not do business with the Montgomery family. The words landed like physical blows. I watched my father's face drain of what little color remained. That merger was supposed to be his crowning achievement. The deal that would cement his legacy. $50 million in contracts. A partnership that would have doubled his company's reach. Gone. Harrison, please. My father finally found his voice. We can discuss this privately. Surely, there's nothing to discuss. Harrison placed his hand on Preston's shoulder. We're leaving. Bella exploded from her chair. This is your fault. She whirled on me, her face twisted with rage. You ruined everything. I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone what you did, how you manipulated. No. The word came out soft, but it stopped her mid-sentence. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. You won't. Watch me. Bella's voice climbed toward hysteria. I have 2 million followers. I know Massachusetts law prohibits secret audio recording. I kept my voice level, conversational. So the video of tonight's dinner stays private. I won't publish it. Bella's expression shifted toward triumph, thinking she'd found an escape route. However, I paused, letting the words settle. The CCTV footage of you dumping that FedEx package? That's evidence of federal mail tampering. Title 18, United States Code, Section 1708. Up to 5 years in federal prison. The color drained from Bella's face. If you dare speak one lie about me on social media, that video and a lawsuit goes straight to the police and your brand sponsors. I tilted my head, studying her. I wonder how Dior and Cartier will feel about their ambassador being investigated for federal crimes. Bella collapsed back into her chair. The sound that came out of her wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a scream. It was the sound of someone's carefully constructed world imploding. My mother sat frozen, her hands clutched in her lap. My father stared at the table like the wood grain held answers. I reached for the cream-colored gift box, the one containing that horrible app membership and that cruel book that I'd put on the table. I picked it up with both hands and walked around the table. Bella flinched when I approached, like I might hit her. I placed the box directly in front of her, right next to Preston's abandoned engagement ring. Keep it, I said. You need it more than I do now. The words tasted like freedom. I turned toward the door. Harrison and Preston were already in the foyer, collecting their coats. As I passed Harrison, he gave me a single nod. Respect, maybe, or approval. It didn't matter which. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, thin and desperate. Caroline, wait. We can fix this. We can. But I was already walking through the foyer, past the marble staircase where Bella and I had posed for Christmas photos as children, through the massive oak doors that closed behind me with a final, definitive thud. The December air hit my face like cold water. Clean. Sharp. My Uber was waiting at the bottom of the circular drive. Exhaust puffing white in the freezing air. I climbed into the back seat, and the driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Logan Airport, I confirmed. As we pulled away, I allowed myself one look back at the Montgomery estate. Every window blazed with light, but from here, it looked empty. A beautiful shell with nothing living inside. I pulled out my phone and video called Nate. His face filled the screen, and the knot in my chest finally began to unwind. His hair was messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes searched mine. "Is it done?" he asked. "It's done. Mom's heating up soup for you." His smile was soft, warm, everything that house wasn't. "Let's go home." Home. Not the place I was born, but the place where I'm loved. "Yeah," I said, and my voice only shook a little. "Let's go home." 3 days later, I was unpacking groceries in our Austin kitchen when the FedEx truck pulled up. Through the window, I watched the driver jog to the porch, scan a package, jog back. The box sat there on the welcome mat, square and flat. I knew what it was before I opened it. I could practically smell my father's desperation through the cardboard. Inside, a check. $50,000. The number seemed obscene, written in my father's careful architect's print. The note was brief, typed on his business letterhead like this was just another transaction. "I'm sorry. Please stay silent about the contract." I stood there in my kitchen, holding $50,000, and I thought about the girl who would have cashed this check. The one who showed up on Christmas Eve still hoping. The one who saved their chairs at her wedding. She's gone. I tore the check in half. Then quarters. Then confetti. My phone was already in my hand. I arranged the pieces on the granite counter. Photographed them. Opened the family group chat. 3 people, Mom, Dad. I typed. "I don't sell my silence. I'm gifting it to you for free, as a parting gift. Do not contact me again." My thumb hovered over the send button for maybe 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. The message showed. Delivered. Then. Read. Someone started typing, stopped, started again. I didn't wait to see what they'd say. I scrolled to the top of the chat, tapped the settings icon, and found the words I'd been looking for. Leave group. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Leave. New Year's Eve arrived, wrapped in Seattle rain and the smell of Meredith's famous pot roast. Nate's family crowded into the living room, laughing, arguing about what movie to watch before the countdown. His sister stole the remote. His nephew spilled grape juice on the carpet. His mother hugged me tight, and I felt the weight of the sapphire brooch on her coat pressing against my shoulder. Real. Solid. An actual heirloom, passed down with love instead of obligation. "Come on," Nate said, taking my hand. "Let's get some air before the fireworks." We stepped onto the back porch. The Space Needle glowed in the distance, and the city hummed with celebration. Nate wrapped his arm around my waist, and I leaned into him, breathing in rain and cedar and freedom. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. I thought about the empty chairs, the hidden invitations, the cruel gift, the check torn into pieces. Not one. The first firework exploded overhead. Gold sparks against black sky. Nate's family cheered from inside, and through the window, I could see them raising glasses, pulling each other into hugs. I'm not the Montgomery daughter anymore. I'm Caroline Vance, architect of landscapes, and now, finally, architect of my own life. I cleared the weeds. I burned out the rot. And here in this garden, something real is growing. So, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with family, even when it felt like the hardest thing in the world? What would you have done in my shoes that night? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.